Well, hello there, family. Welcome back to Grandma's Kitchen. Today we're making what might be the most special, most celebratory dish in soul cooking, oxtails. These are braised until they're fall-off-the-bone tender, swimming in rich, thick gravy. And they represent love, sacrifice, and celebration, all on one plate. But this isn't just any oxtails recipe. This is the dish we made for Grandma's 65th birthday. The birthday when I finally understood how much she'd sacrificed for all of us. The meal that taught me that the people who give the most rarely treat themselves. And while these oxtails are braising low and slow, filling the kitchen with that incredible smell of beef and onions and herbs, I'm going to tell you about coming home from college and realizing I'd taken Grandma for granted my whole life. About discovering that she'd been skipping meals so we could eat, and about the birthday dinner that became about so much more than food. This isn't just about cooking oxtails. This is about recognizing sacrifice, about honoring the people who give everything, and about learning to say thank you with more than just words. Before we start cooking, I need to tell you about oxtails and why they matter so much in soul food culture. Because understanding this dish means understanding sacrifice, resourcefulness, and making something extraordinary from what others overlook. Oxtails are literally the tail of a cow or ox, cut into segments at the joints. They're mostly bone with meat around the outside, and lots of connective tissue and collagen. Historically, they were considered a throwaway cut, something poor people ate because they couldn't afford the expensive cuts of meat. Butchers would practically give them away. Enslaved people, and later black families during segregation and poverty, learned to take these cheap, tough cuts and transform them through low, slow cooking into something absolutely delicious. Meat so tender it falls off the bone. Gravy so rich and flavorful, it makes you want to lick the plate. But here's what happened. As soul food became more popular, as people outside the black community discovered how delicious oxtails are, the price way up. What used to be the cheap cut that poor families could afford became expensive. These days, oxtails cost almost as much per pound as premium steak, sometimes more. A good-sized portion of oxtails for a family dinner can cost $40, $50, even $60 or more. So oxtails became a special occasion food. You don't make oxtails for a regular Tuesday dinner. You make them for birthdays, for celebrations, for when someone you love has achieved something important, for when you want to show someone they matter. Making oxtails for someone says, you're worth the expense. You're worth the time, because oxtails take hours to cook properly. You're worth the effort. In our family, Grandma made oxtails for everyone's birthday. My birthday, my brother's birthdays, my cousin's birthdays, my mama's birthday, my aunts and uncles' birthdays. Every single birthday in our extended family, Grandma would make oxtails because she wanted everyone to feel special on their day. She'd spend the money, spend the time, stand at the stove for hours, making sure those oxtails were perfect. But I never once, in 19 years of life, saw Grandma make oxtails for her own birthday. I came home from college for Thanksgiving when I was 19, and Grandma's 65th birthday was coming up in 2 weeks, early December. My mama and my aunts were planning a birthday dinner at Grandma's house, and they were discussing what to cook. I assumed, of course, that we'd be making oxtails. That's what Grandma made for everyone else's birthdays, so naturally, that's what we'd make for hers. But my Aunt Joyce said, Mama doesn't like us to make oxtails for her birthday. She always says they're too expensive, says to make something else. And I said, what do you mean? Grandma loves oxtails. She makes them for everyone. My mama looked at me with this sad expression. Baby, she said, Grandma makes oxtails for everyone else because she wants them to feel special. But she won't let us spend that kind of money on her. Says it's wasteful. Says she'd rather we save the money for something important. That hit me like a punch in the stomach. All these years, Grandma had been spending $40, $50, $60 every time someone in our family had a birthday, so we could have oxtails, so we could feel special. And on her own birthday, she told people not to spend that money on her. She literally valued everyone else more than she valued herself. I started thinking about all the ways Grandma had sacrificed for us that I'd never really noticed. The way she'd give us the best pieces of chicken and take the back for herself. The way she'd buy us new clothes for school, but wear the same dresses for years. The way she'd slip money to my mama when things were tight, even though I knew Grandma didn't have much either. The way she'd cook huge meals for family gatherings and barely eat anything herself, saying she'd nibbled while cooking so we could have more. The people who sacrifice the most rarely treat themselves. They give and then give, and they act like they don't deserve anything in return. That night, I called my brothers and my cousins. "We're making oxtails for Grandma's birthday," I said, "and we're paying for them ourselves. All of us kids. We're going to pool our money and buy the oxtails and cook them for her." There were 6 of us. Me and my 2 brothers and 3 cousins who were close to our age. We were all either in college or working first jobs. None of us had much money, but we agreed to each put in money, and together we'd buy enough oxtails to feed the whole family at Grandma's birthday dinner. Let me teach you how to make oxtails the way we made them for Grandma's birthday, the way she'd taught us over the years by letting us watch her cook them for everyone else. I've got 4 pounds of oxtails here. That's enough to serve about 6 people generously. When you're buying oxtails, look for pieces that have good meat coverage around the bone. They should look fresh, smell clean, have a deep red color. Don't buy oxtails that look dried out or have a gray color. First step is seasoning. Oxtails need to be well seasoned because we want flavor throughout, not just in the gravy. I'm placing my oxtails in a large bowl, and I'm seasoning them generously with salt, black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, and a little cayenne for warmth. I'm using my hands to really work the seasoning into the meat, coating every surface, getting into all the crevices. Many people let seasoned oxtails marinate overnight in the refrigerator, and that's ideal if you have time. The salt penetrates the meat and the flavors develop. But minimum, let them sit for at least an hour at room temperature while you prep everything else. The 2 weeks before Grandma's birthday, we kids worked extra hours, picked up extra shifts, saved every dollar we could. We ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. We skipped going out with friends. We put every spare dollar into the oxtail fund. By the time her birthday came around, we had enough money to buy 5 pounds of oxtails from the butcher, enough to feed the whole family with leftovers. The day before her birthday, all 6 of us, grandkids, showed up at Grandma's house. "We're cooking dinner for your birthday," we told her. "We're in charge. You're not allowed in the kitchen. You have to sit in the living room and relax." Grandma protested. She always protested when people tried to do things for her. "You don't need to cook for me," she said. "I can make something simple. You kids don't need to go to any trouble." "Sit down, Grandma," my cousin Marcus said firmly but lovingly. "For once in your life, let somebody do something for you." We got to work. My oldest brother Devin and cousin Marcus started on the oxtails because they'd watched Grandma make them the most times. My other brother James and cousin Lisa worked on the sides: rice, string beans, cornbread. My cousin Angela and I were on cleanup duty and helping wherever needed. Now I'm gonna sear these oxtails. This step is important for developing flavor. I've got a large, heavy pot. A Dutch oven is ideal. And I'm heating 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil over medium-high heat. Once the oil is shimmering hot, I'm adding the oxtails in batches, being careful not to crowd the pot. I'm searing them until they're deeply browned on all sides. Listen to that sizzle. That's the sound of flavor developing, of the meat caramelizing, of that seasoning forming a crust. I'm not trying to cook the oxtails through at this point. I'm just creating color and flavor. Once each batch is seared, I'm removing them to a plate and searing the next batch. When my brother Devin started searing the oxtails that day, the smell filled Grandma's kitchen. That distinctive smell of browning beef, of seasonings hitting hot oil. From the living room, we heard Grandma call out, "What are y'all cooking in there? Smells like oxtails." "Don't worry about it, Grandma," Angela called back. "Just relax." There was silence for a moment, and then we heard Grandma's voice, quieter. Y'all didn't spend money on oxtails. Tell me you didn't buy oxtails. All of us in the kitchen looked at each other. Marcus went to the living room doorway. Grandma, he said, you've made oxtails for every single one of our birthdays for our entire lives. We pooled our money together. All 6 of us contributed. We wanted to make oxtails for you. And we heard her start to cry. Not sad crying, overwhelmed crying. The kind of crying that happens when someone who never lets anyone do anything for them finally has to accept that they're cared for. All the oxtails are seared now and set aside. In the same pot, with all those flavorful brown bits stuck to the bottom, I'm adding diced onions, diced bell peppers, minced garlic, and diced carrots. I'm cooking these vegetables over medium heat, stirring them around to scrape up all those brown bits from the bottom of the pot. Those brown bits are called fond, and they're packed with flavor that's going to make our gravy rich and delicious. I'm cooking these vegetables until they're softened and fragrant, about 7 to 8 minutes. The onions should be translucent, the peppers soft, the garlic aromatic. Now I'm adding tomato paste, about 2 tablespoons, and cooking it with the vegetables for a couple of minutes. This deepens the tomato flavor and adds richness to the gravy. After the vegetables were soft and smelling incredible, Devin added beef broth to the pot, about 4 cups. He added Worcestershire sauce, soy sauce, a bay leaf, fresh thyme, and a little brown sugar. Then he returned all those seared oxtails to the pot, along with any juices that had accumulated on the plate. The liquid should come about halfway up the oxtails. If it doesn't, add more broth or water. You want enough liquid to create plenty of gravy, but you don't want the oxtails completely submerged like soup. I'm bringing this to a boil. Then I'm reducing the heat to low, covering the pot, and letting this simmer. Oxtails need to braise low and slow for at least 2.5 to 3 hours. Some people cook them even longer, 4 hours, 5 hours. The longer they cook, the more tender they become, and the more flavor develops in the gravy. During this long cooking time, I'll check on them every 30 minutes or so, giving them a stir, making sure there's enough liquid. If the liquid gets too low, I'll add more broth. The meat is ready when it's so tender it's falling off the bone. When you can cut it with a fork. When the connective tissue is broken down into gelatin that thickens the gravy. While Devin's oxtails were simmering on the stove, requiring occasional checking, but mostly just needing time. All of us grandkids sat at Grandma's kitchen table and talked. We talked about our memories of Grandma cooking for us. We talked about all the ways she'd sacrificed for us over the years. Ways we were just starting to understand now that we were older. Now that we were out in the world and understood what things cost, what time meant, what sacrifice looked like. Marcus talked about the time Grandma paid for his college textbooks when he couldn't afford them, and he'd found out later that she'd skipped buying her medication that month to have the money. Lisa talked about how Grandma used to watch her after school every day for free when Lisa's mama had to work 2 jobs. How Grandma would help her with homework and feed her dinner and never ask for $1. James talked about the time Grandma bought him a winter coat when he'd outgrow his old one, and he'd later seen that same coat in a store for over $100. We'd all taken it for granted. We'd all just assumed that's what grandmas do. That's what love looks like, without really understanding that love costs something. Love requires sacrifice. Love means putting someone else's needs before your own, sometimes to your own detriment. And Grandma had been doing that for all of us, for decades. And she'd never once asked for anything in return. She'd never once said, "What about me? When do I get to be the one who's cared for? When do I get to be the one who's celebrated without worrying about the cost?" My oxtails have been simmering for about 2.5 hours now. Let me check them. I'm pulling out a piece and testing it with a fork. The meat is incredibly tender, falling right off the bone. Perfect. The gravy has thickened beautifully, rich and dark and glossy. This is exactly right. Some people like to take the oxtails out at this point and reduce the gravy further on high heat To make it even thicker, I'm going to do that. I'm removing the oxtails to a serving platter and covering them to keep warm. I'm turning the heat to high and letting the gravy boil and reduce for about 10 minutes, stirring occasionally. The gravy will thicken and concentrate in flavor. While the gravy is reducing, I'm tasting it and adjusting the seasoning. It needs a little more salt, a touch more black pepper. Some people like to add a splash of red wine or a little butter at the end to enrich the gravy even more. The gravy is perfect now, thick enough to coat the back of a spoon, rich and deeply flavorful. I'm pouring this over the oxtails on the serving platter. When Devin announced that the oxtails were done, we all helped finish the rest of the meal. The rice was fluffy and perfect. The string beans were cooked with a little bacon and onions. The cornbread was golden and hot from the oven. We set Grandma's table with her nice dishes, put flowers in the center, made everything as beautiful as we could. Then we brought Grandma into the dining room. When she saw that table, saw the platter of oxtails with that rich gravy, saw all the sides, saw how we'd set everything up special, her eyes filled with tears again. "Y'all did all this for me," she said, her voice shaking. "Grandma," I said, and my own voice was shaking too. "You've done this for all of us, every year, our whole lives. You've cooked special meals and spent money you didn't have, and given us your time and your energy and your love, and you've never asked for anything back. Today, you don't get a choice. Today, you sit down and let us serve you. Today, you get to be celebrated the way you've celebrated all of us." We served her first. We piled her plate high with oxtails and rice and beans and cornbread. We sat around that table, 6 grandkids and Grandma, and we ate those oxtails that we pooled our money to buy, that we'd cooked with love and gratitude, and they were delicious. The meat was fall-apart tender. The gravy was rich and thick and perfect for soaking into the rice. But more than the taste, what mattered was what that meal represented. It represented us finally recognizing her sacrifice. It represented us saying thank you with more than words. It represented us understanding that love costs something and being willing to pay that cost. Grandma kept crying through most of the meal. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears, the tears of who spent their whole life giving and rarely receiving, finally being shown that they're valued, that they're appreciated, that they're loved, not just in words, but in actions. After dinner, when we were all sitting around with full bellies, Grandma said something I'll never forget. She said, "I never made oxtails for my own birthday because I always thought the money and the time were better spent on y'all. I always thought y'all needed it more than I did. But what I realize now is that by never letting anyone do anything for me, I was robbing y'all of the chance to give back, to show love, to practice gratitude. I was treating myself like I didn't matter, and that taught y'all that it was okay for me not to matter. I'm sorry for that." We all protested, told her she didn't need to apologize, told her we were the ones who should be sorry for taking so long to understand, for not noticing sooner. But she shook her head. "Listen to me," she said. "When you grow up and have your own families, remember this. Love people well. Sacrifice for them when you need to. But also let them love you back. Let them sacrifice for you sometimes. Let them show you that you matter. Don't spend your whole life giving without ever receiving, because that's not love. That's martyrdom. And martyrs don't get to enjoy the love that comes back to them." Those words changed how I understood love and sacrifice. They changed how I let people care for me. They changed how I saw Grandma, not just as someone who gave endlessly, but as someone who also deserved to receive, who also needed to be celebrated, who also mattered. From that birthday forward, we made sure to cook oxtails for Grandma every year. We made sure to do things for her even when she protested. We made sure she knew she was valued, not just for what she did for us, but for who she was. Look at these oxtails. The meat is so tender it's falling off the bone. The gravy is rich, thick, dark, perfect for soaking into rice or sopping up with cornbread. This is a meal that takes time, costs money, requires effort. This is a meal you make when you want someone to know they're worth it. What I learned from making oxtails for Grandma's birthday is that the people who sacrifice the most rarely treat themselves. They're so used to putting everyone else first that they forget or they never learned that they matter too. It's our job to remind them. It's our job to say through our actions and not just our words, "You're worth the expensive cut of meat. You're worth the hours of cooking time. You're worth the money we saved and the effort we put in." I also learned that love isn't just about giving. It's also about receiving. It's about letting people show you that you matter to them. It's about accepting care, accepting sacrifice, accepting celebration. If you only ever give and never receive, you rob the people who love you of the chance to express that love. Thank you for being here with me in Grandma's kitchen today. Thank you for letting me teach you how to make oxtails and for letting me share the story of Grandma's 65th birthday. The birthday when we finally showed her she mattered as much as she'd always shown us we mattered. I hope you'll make these oxtails for someone you love. I hope you'll use them to say thank you to someone who's sacrificed for you. And I hope you'll remember what Grandma taught us, that love means both giving and receiving, both sacrifice and acceptance, both cooking for others and letting others cook for you. Next time in Grandma's kitchen, we'll make another soul food classic, and I'll share another story about love, sacrifice, and what it means to truly care for someone. Until then, take care. Make some oxtails for someone special. Recognize the people who sacrifice for you. And remember, let people love you back. Let them show you that you matter. Don't rob them of that chance. God bless you, family.